Across our world, ancient structures and forgotten artifacts still sit in the shadows of deserts, mountains, and deep forests. Places built with precision we can't fully explain, and objects created by people we no longer remember. In this video, we explore 30 discoveries that challenge what we think we know. Lost cities carved into cliffs, temples older than recorded history, underwater roads, star-shaped complexes, and artifacts so advanced they feel out of place in their own time. If you love real archaeology with quiet mystery, stay with me. The alien head figurine of Bowan, in the far north of Kuwait, not far from the dusty horizon of the Arabian Gulf, lies a quiet patch of desert called Bara. It looks ordinary, just low mounds, wind-cut ridges, and the pale shimmer of heat over sand. But buried beneath that silence is one of the most puzzling finds in Middle Eastern archaeology. A small clay head barely the size of a child's fist, with a face that seems not quite human. Its skull is elongated, its eyes narrow and almond-shaped, and its expression calm, distant, unreadable, has haunted every archaeologist who's looked into it. The figurine was discovered in 2016 by a joint Kuwaiti-Polish team working at Bowan, one of the earliest known Neolithic settlements on the Gulf Coast. Radiocarbon dates place the site around 7,000 years old. The people who lived here farmed, fished, and traded along routes that would one day become the arteries of Mesopotamia. They left pottery, tools, hearths, and fragments of their lives. But among all that debris, nothing else looked like this. The figurine was found broken, just the head, its body lost to time. When conservators cleaned the clay, the details emerged slowly. The skull stretched back unnaturally long. The eyes were slanted upward. The mouth was only a faint groove. No other artifact from this period in Arabia or southern Mesopotamia carries these proportions. To some, it resembled the stylized art of distant cultures. To others, it looked like something entirely out of place, as if its sculptor had seen a being that didn't belong to this world. The One itself was already unusual. It sits at the crossroads between two very different worlds. The Arabian Peninsula, home to early coastal herders and pearl divers, and southern Mesopotamia, where the first villages were becoming towns. Archaeologists believe One may have been a trading post linking those two spheres. They found pottery imported from far away, painted jars from Mumbai period Iraq, delicate ceramics that predate the Samaritans by centuries. Whoever lived here had contacts stretching hundreds of kilometers. The discovery of the figurine only deepened the mystery. In Mesopotamia, small clay idols were common, fertility goddesses, animal spirits, or family protectors. But the One head was nothing like them. It lacked the full feminine form typical of mother goddess figures. It was purely a head carved with care and deliberately exaggerated. The sculptor had shaped the skull into a long oval tapering toward the back, then incised two deep diagonal lines for eyes. The result is startlingly modern, almost abstract, as if trying to capture not anatomy, but essence. When photographs were released, the figurine became instantly famous online. Some called it proof of ancient alien contact. Others saw in it the echo of cranial elongation, a practice found later in Egypt in the Andes, where human skulls were bound in infancy to produce a high domed shape associated with nobility. Could this tiny sculpture record an early version of that same idea, a symbol of status or of beings believed to be closer to the gods? Archaeologists remain cautious. The figurine was made of simple clay, sun-dried rather than kiln-fired. It could have been a toy, a charm, or an idol used in domestic ritual. Yet even with that modest material, its craftsmanship is deliberate. Every mark is intentional. The symmetry of the eyes, the subtle ridge of the nose, the slight forward tilt of the head, all convey personality. It may represent not an alien, but the earliest attempt at portraying the human spirit as something beyond flesh. The surrounding site tells a quiet story. Bafra once held rectangular mud brick houses, each divided into small rooms. Hearths, grinding stones, and fish bones showed daily life beside the sea. People here traded obsidian from Anatolia, shells from the Gulf, and bummen from Mesopotamia. This was not an isolated tribe, but part of a network connecting early civilizations thousands of years before cities rose in Sumer. Amid this trade of goods and ideas, someone molded that figurine, perhaps as an offering, perhaps as memory. To hold it today is to feel a tension between worlds. Its surface is rough with time, its features softened by erosion, yet the design remains unmistakable. When the archaeologists lifted it from the sand, the desert wind was still, the air dry and heavy. They cleaned it gently with brushes, and slowly the eyes appeared. Two dark shadows staring through 7 millennia. At that moment, the dig site fell silent. Everyone there sensed the same thing, that they were looking into a face that did not belong to any culture they knew. What was the sculptor trying to say? Was this the image of a deity, a spirit, or an ancestor? Or was it the memory of something seen or imagined on the horizon of consciousness when myth and life were still the same? In later analysis, microscopic study of the clay revealed traces of fine shell grit, a material often mixed to strengthen ceremonial figurines. That detail suggests purpose. This was not a child's toy or discarded scrap. It was meant to last, and somehow it did. When displayed under museum lights, the figurine seems to change expression with each angle. From one side, it looks human, from another, unearthly. That ambiguity might be the very reason it was made to embody the threshold between the known and the unknown, the human and the divine. Thousands of years ago, the people of Bowan looked up at the same stars we see today, unspoiled by city lights. To them, the heavens were alive, each point a light, a messenger, or a sign. Maybe when the sculptor shaped those slanted eyes, they were imagining the gaze of the sky itself. Whatever its origin, the alien head figurine of Barrow 1 reminds us how ancient art can still ask modern questions. Who were we then? What did we see? And why does the image of that narrow-eyed face still feel so familiar, as if it were waiting for us to recognize it? The giant Ice Age hand axe of Kent in the rolling green hills of southeast England, where the River Medway winds slowly through the county of Kent. The ground beneath the grass tells a story far older than Britain itself. Beneath these fields lies Ice Age earth, layers of gravel, flint, and clay that once formed the floodplains of a world ruled by mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses. And in that ancient soil, archaeologists found something extraordinary. A tool. So massive, so deliberate in its creation that it seemed to come from hands larger than our own. It is known as the giant hand axe of Kent, and it dates back nearly 300,000 years to a time when early humans walked a landscape colder, harsher, and emptier than anything we can imagine. The discovery was made in 2023 during routine excavations near Maidstone. Archaeologists were surveying a site before construction, expecting to find typical Ice Age flints, the kind used by Homo heidelbergensis, a species that lived long before modern humans did, but what they unearthed that day stopped them in their tracks. Lying in the sediment was a flint hand axe over 30 centimeters long, the length of a man's forearm, and twice the size of any normal Paleolithic tool. Its shape was perfect, symmetrical, finely flaked, and clearly made with intention. It wasn't a rough cobble or a broken cordon. It was a weapon or an instrument carved with extraordinary skill. Yet, its size made no sense. It was too big to hold comfortably, too heavy to use efficiently. Whoever made it wasn't thinking about practicality. They were thinking about something else entirely. Archaeologists have found more than 800,000 years of human history in Britain, from the first footprints left in Norfolk mud to the earliest stone tools scattered across valleys. But the Ken hand axe stands apart. It belongs to a small, rare class of objects known as giant big faces, oversized stone tools found across Europe, always in small numbers, always from Ice Age layers. Each one looks like a magnified version of the classic Aoran hand axe, a teardrop-shaped piece of flint sharpened on both sides, balanced perfectly in form. The hand axe from Ken measures 29.6 centimeters long and weighs over 1.5 kilograms. To create it, the maker would have needed a raw flint nodule of exceptional size and remarkable strength and control to chip it evenly without breaking it. One misstrike and the entire tool would have shattered. That didn't happen. Whoever made this had experience, confidence, and purpose. But what was that purpose? For early humans like Homo heidelbergensis, hand axes were multi-purpose tools, the Swiss Army knives of the Paleolithic world. They were used to butcher animals, scrape hides, dig roots, and shape wood. Yet the giant axes don't fit those roles. They're too large for daily use. Some archaeologists think they were ceremonial objects, symbols of status or skill, the prehistoric equivalent of a craftsman showing mastery through perfection. Others believe they had a ritual role, objects made not to be used, but to be seen. When you hold an ordinary hand axe, it fits snugly in your palm. When you hold the Kent giant, it fills both hands completely. It demands attention. It feels more like a statement than a tool. Imagine the Ice Age world around it. Open plains stretching toward the horizon. Herds of ancient horses and bison moving across frost-covered ground. Small bands of early humans bundled in furs gather around fires, their breath white in the cold. One of them carries a flint unlike any other, gleaming under the weak sun, reflecting skill and strength. In a world where survival meant everything, such an object might have been a symbol of power or identity. The flint itself comes from chalk bedrock, shaped by countless centuries of water and frost before it was struck by human hands. The surface shows fine ripples where flakes were removed in precise sequence, a technique that required not just physical strength, but also mental planning. To make a manifest of this scale, the maker had to visualize every flake before striking, controlling the angles with near mathematical precision. Modern experiments in knapping, the art of stone tools, show how difficult that is. Most large flint nodules fracture unpredictably, creating a symmetrical briefness. Even half this size takes hours of concentration. One wrong impact can destroy days of work. That the Ken hand axe exists at all means it was made by someone who not only understood the material, but also aimed for perfection beyond utility. It's tempting to think of prehistoric people as primitive, but objects like this challenge that view. This was not brute work. It was art, geometry made from stone. When the excavation team found it, the air was still cool, the ground damp from spring rain. They noticed the flint's edge glinting through the soil. As they brushed it free, its size became clear. Photos from that moment show the archaeologists kneeling in silence, their gloved hands hovering just above the artifact. Even for professionals who spend their lives unearthing the past, this was something rare. A moment when time feels like it collapses, and you're face to face with a mind from another world. Analysis later confirmed its age, the sediments around. It dated to the Middle Plain roughly 300,000 years ago, the same period as other large bifaces found in the temples and some valleys. Britain at that time was not an island, but part of a vast steppe stretching into Europe. It was cold, raw, and unstable, a land between ice and green. The people who made tools here lived in small groups, hunting large animals and moving with the seasons. They left behind almost nothing. No houses, no art, no written word, only stone. And yet that stone speaks volumes. The Ken hand axe suggests pride, a maker who wanted to push limits, to create something extraordinary in a world of bare necessity. It's possible that it served a symbolic purpose, perhaps exchanged between groups or left as an offering near water. Many giant axes have been found close to ancient river channels, as if deliberately placed rather than lost. In that sense, they could represent an early form of human ritual, objects made not for survival, but for meaning. Archaeologists often say that the moment humans began to create things not just out of need, but out of imagination, was the moment humanity truly began. Maybe that spark was already there, flickering in the cold plains of Ice Age Kent. When viewed today under museum light, the surface of the hand axe glows faintly, a dull gray with hints of blue. The edges are still sharp after 300 millennia. You can see every strike, every curve. It's the signature of a person who lived before history, yet thought and created as we do with vision. And that may be the most haunting part of all. The maker of this enormous tool is gone without a name. Their people vanished, their language lost. But the flint remains, a message in stone, silent but unmissable, saying simply, "We were here. We understood." The leader cursed the tablet of Mount Ebel, West Bank, high above the dusty hills of the West Bank where the wind moves through olive. Trees in the stone terraces step down toward the valley of Shechem. There stands an ancient mountain that carries an older name, Mount Ebel. In the Hebrew Bible, Mount Ebel is described as the mountain of the curse. It is where Joshua, the successor of Moses, gathered the Israelites after crossing into Canaan. Half the tribes stood on nearby Mount Gerizim to bless, and half on Ebel to curse, sealing a covenant with their God. For centuries, the story was a myth, a sacred tale without proof. But in 2019, an object emerged from the soil of Mount Ebel that may for the first time link text and archaeology. A tiny folded sheet of lead, so small it could rest on a fingertip, yet heavy with controversy. It is called the Mount Ebel Curse Tablet. The artifact was found not through excavation, but through wet sifting, a method where dirt from older digs is re-examined with water to catch smaller finds that were once missed. The soil came from a site first excavated in the 1980s by Israeli archaeologist Adam Zerel, who believed he had found an early altar on the mountain, possibly the one mentioned in the book of Joshua. For decades, the idea was debated. Sur's tall stone structure, a rectangular platform surrounded by ramp-like walls, was dismissed by some scholars as just another Bronze Age WATCHTOWER. The discovery of this laid tablet has brought that site back into the center of one of the fiercest debates in biblical archaeology. The tablet is small, only 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters, folded tightly, sealed shut. Its surface is corroded, its edges crushed by time. At first, it looked like an unremarkable scrap of ancient metal, but when it was scanned using high-resolution tomographic imaging, the researchers saw faint lines inside, markings, curves, letters. They realized the inscription lay hidden within, written before the lid was folded closed. And those letters, if the interpretation is correct, carry the earliest known form of ancient Hebrew writing, dating to around 3,200 years ago, near the end of the Late Bronze Age. The text, according to the team led by archaeologist Scott Stripling, is simple yet powerful. It reads, "Cursed, cursed, cursed by the God Yahweh. You will die cursed." If authentic, it would represent the oldest known mention of the divine name ever found in Israel, predating the Dead Sea Scrolls by over 1,000 years. But the claim, as expected, has divided the academic world. Many archaeologists urge caution. The artifact was not found in situ. not unearthed directly by trowel from a sealed layer, but recovered from soil that had already been disturbed decades earlier. Without clear stratigraphic context, its precise age is uncertain. Others argue that the letter shapes, early proto-alphabetic symbols, are open to interpretation. The marks could be natural scratches, or they could represent another dialect entirely. Still, even skeptics admit the object is remarkable. Lead tablets like this were used throughout the ancient Near East and Mediterranean for a single purpose: to bind curses. They appear in Greek Ramah and Canaanite contexts, often inscribed with words of malediction, folded shut and buried in graves, wells, or sanctuaries. The intent was always the same: to send a message into the unseen, calling for justice or vengeance. If the Mount Tablet truly belongs to that tradition, it would push the practice back nearly a millennium earlier than previously known, to a time when writing itself was still a rare and sacred act. But the deeper question remains: who wrote it? And why here? Mount Ebel overlooks the ancient city of Shechem, one of the oldest continuously inhabited sites in the Levant. To its south lies Mount Gerizim, the mountain of blessing. Between them runs a natural amphitheater of stone. The geography is strikingly close to the description in the book of Joshua, where the Israelites renewed their covenant after entering Canaan. If Zero's structure on Ebel really was an altar, and if this tablet truly contains the name Yahweh, then this small piece of metal may be the earliest physical trace of the Israelite identity, the moment when oral faith first touched stone and metal. When the scans were first unveiled, they showed faint incisions that formed recognizable characters. The letters are angular, primitive, not yet standardized Hebrew, but the Proto-Nite script from which Hebrew later evolved. In one line, the divine name appears compressed as if hidden, a secret word folded in lead, meant for no living eyes. The ritual power of lead was well known in the ancient world. It was a metal of finality, heavy, unyielding, and associated with the underworld. To write a curse on lead was to bind it permanently. Once folded, it could not be read again. That act itself was symbolic. The message was sealed not for men, but for gods. The Mount Ebel tablet may therefore be more than a text. It is a prayer, or perhaps a warning left at the threshold between heaven and earth. When Stripling's team announced their findings in 2022, headlines spread across the world. Some called it the earliest Hebrew inscription ever discovered. Others called it wishful archaeology. Yet beyond the debate, the artifact itself remains silent, unchanged by belief or skepticism. It sits under controlled light in a conservation lab. A dull folded square of metal that might hold one of history's oldest written names for God. What makes it so haunting is not the controversy, but the image it evokes. A hand 3,000 years ago etching a message onto soft lead, then folding it tight, sealing a curse. Perhaps it was a priest. Perhaps a supplicant desperate for divine protection or vengeance. We will never know. But through that act, something human survives. The same need to be heard, to ask for justice, to speak into the silence of eternity. And whether or not the inscription truly names Yahweh, the meaning endures. The cursed tablet of Mount Ebel is a fragment of a world on the edge of history. The moment when faith and fear found a voice in metal and writing became a bridge between the seen and the unseen. The Heslington brain. In the rolling green fields of northern England, just outside the city of York, archaeologists unearthed something that should have been impossible. They were excavating an Iron Age settlement, clearing ground for a new university building. The soil was damp, rich with clay, the kind that preserves wood, seeds, and bones. But what they found one cold morning in 2008 stopped the entire dig. A human skull had been buried in a pit, severed cleanly from its body. Inside that skull, Nestled where the brain should have long since decayed to dust was something soft, golden, and unmistakable. It was a human brain, still intact, preserved for 2,600 years. No other part of the body survived, but the folds of that ancient organ remained, shrunk and hardened, yet instantly recognizable. Archaeologists named it the Heslington brain after the small village nearby. And in that moment they realized they had uncovered one of the most extraordinary examples of natural preservation ever found. Normally, the brain is the first organ to disappear after death. Within days, its delicate tissues collapse, liquefy, and vanish. For a brain to survive even a year, let alone 2.5 millennia, requires conditions so rare that scientists could barely believe what they were seeing. The skull was found, face down in a shallow pit about a meter below the surface. There were no grave goods, no coffin, no sign of a burial ritual. The neck vertebrae showed clean-cut marks suggesting decapitation. Whoever this person was, they died violently, beheaded, their head tossed or placed deliberately into the earth. The rest of the body was missing. When the skull was lifted and examined in the lab, the discovery became even stranger. Inside, the brain was not fossilized or mineralized. It was organic, soft tissue that had somehow resisted the natural processes of decay. It had shrunken to about 1/5 of its original size, but retained the grooves and ridges of the cortex. Under a microscope, the structure of neurons and membranes could still be seen. Chemical analysis later revealed why. The soil of Heslington is rich in fine clay and low in oxygen. When the head was buried, water quickly filled the pit and cut off airflow. That aerobic environment prevented bacteria from consuming the brain. Over time, the proteins inside it cross-linked, forming a dense rubbery mass that resisted decomposition, a process unlike anything ever seen before. But that explanation only deepens the mystery. Why was the head there in the first place? During the Iron Age, decapitation was sometimes part of ritual sacrifice or warfare. Across Britain, archaeologists have found skulls deposited in rivers and bogs, offerings perhaps to the gods of the underworld. The Heslington find fits that pattern. But the condition of the brain and the way it was preserved makes it unique. CT scans and isotopic tests revealed that the person was a man in his 30s, healthy at the time of death. His neck showed signs of hanging or a swift blow before decapitation. Afterward, his head was buried alone, face down, quickly sealed by wet soil. Within weeks, the lack of oxygen turned the pit into a natural time capsule. Forensic studies showed no deliberate embalming, no chemicals or resins. The preservation was entirely natural, a coincidence of environment and chemistry so rare that it has never been fully replicated. When scientists from the University of Bradford examined the tissue under electron microscopes, they found something even more astonishing. Neural structures are still visible. The tiny branching shapes of neurons and gal cells were preserved as if frozen in time. The brain had literally held its shape across 26 centuries. To touch it, researchers said, was like touching hardened leather, pliable but firm. The color was golden brown with darker patches where oxidation had set in. The texture was unlike any other ancient organ ever studied. What makes the Heslington brain so haunting is not just its survival, but what it represents. A fragment of thought, memory, and life preserved against all odds. The person it belonged to lived in a world without writing, without cities, in a land of wooden roundhouses and open moors. They hunted, worked the soil, and lived within sight of the changing seasons. And yet, here in the modern world, their brain still rests, silent but tangible. The archaeologists who first held it described a kind of reverence. It wasn't just a scientific find. It was an encounter with a person, an individual whose final Thoughts, fears, and sensations ended suddenly, but left a trace that should not exist. Over the following years, the brain was studied intensively. Biochemical tests found proteins and lipids similar to those in modern tissue. Some researchers believe the same chemical process that preserved bog bodies in northern Europe may have acted here, though no other known site in Britain has produced a result quite like it. Today, the Heslington brain remains one of the oldest preserved human brains ever discovered, older than the Roman Empire, older than written history in Britain. It's kept in a secure lab at the University of York, monitored for temperature and humidity. Its surface is still faintly glistening under the light. Visitors often describe the same reaction, awe mixed with discomfort. Got to see the physical seat of thought, the very organ that once dreamed, remembered, and feared. Preserved like a relic is to realize how fragile we truly are. The scientists studying it speak carefully. They avoid words like miracle. They call it a perfect accident, the meeting of biology, environment, and chance. But beneath that explanation lies something deeper, a quiet awareness that this object, more than any artifact or weapon, brings us face to face with the human past at its most personal. Not as bones or stone tools, but as mind-made matter. The Canaanite ivory comb. In the heart of southern Israel, where the hills of Lish rise gently from the dry plains, archaeologists uncovered an object so ordinary, so human that it nearly went unnoticed. It wasn't gold or stone or a statue of a god. It was a comb carved from ivory, delicate, broken in half. But on its warm surface, etched by a steady hand nearly 3,700 years ago, was something far more extraordinary. The oldest known alphabetic sentence in the world. The inscription reads, "May this tusk root out the lice of the hair and the beard." It's short, almost humorous, but behind those few words lies the beginning of something that changed civilization forever. The invention of writing that anyone could learn. The comb was discovered in 2016 at Tel Lachish, one of the most important Canaanite cities of the Bronze Age. For years, the artifact lay unnoticed in storage, covered in dust and debris, its teeth long gone. Then in 2022, a team of researchers re-examined it with advanced lighting and noticed faint, shallow scratches along the handle. When they enhanced the images, the marks formed recognizable shapes, letters, not pictographs, not uniform wedges, but letters of an alphabet. Small abstract symbols representing sounds. It was the script that would one day become Phoenician, then Greek, then Latin, and eventually the alphabet you're reading now. This little comb carved from imported elephant ivory bridges the world of image-based writing and the birth of literacy itself. Archaeologist Daniel Vainstube, who led the study, could hardly believe it when he deciphered the words. The letters were Proto-Canaanite, the earliest form of alphabetic writing, used around 1700 BCE. Before this writing belonged to scribes and priests, trained for years to master the complex scripts of Egypt and Mesopotamia. But in Canaan, someone began simplifying, breaking words into sounds, assigning each sound a symbol. It was the first time writing could belong to everyone. And here, on something as simple as a lice comb, that innovation took a very human form. The object itself is small, just 3.5 centimeters long, with teeth on both sides, fine teeth for hair, coarse ones for beards. Under a microscope, scientists even found traces of head lice still clinging to its surface, ancient parasites frozen in time. Whoever owned this comb lived a real life, sweating, scratching, and caring for themselves just like we do. The inscription, though humble, speaks volumes. It's both a wish and a joke, a charm to drive away pests. It reflects the ordinary struggles of Bronze Age life, where hygiene, superstition, and language met in a single artifact. The writer may have believed that carving words on the object could give it power, that the magic of the written word could make the comb more effective. But there's another layer to its meaning to carve those letters. Someone had to know the alphabet. Not a priest, not a royal scribe, just an artisan or local literate person. That means that by 1700 BCE, the alphabet wasn't just invented. It was already spreading. The earliest Canaanite inscriptions were not used to glorify kings or gods, but to record simple human concerns that it began not in temples, but in homes. And that's what makes this find so powerful. The world's first alphabetic sentence wasn't about conquest or religion. It was about lice, in that it carries a quiet truth that civilization grows not only from monuments and wars, but from the smallest acts of daily life. The urge to speak, to write, to name, and to wish. The ivory came from Africa, traded north through Egypt and across the Levant, proof that Lakesh was already part of a vast network of commerce. The combs maker likely worked in a workshop attached to the palace, shaping the imported material into fine objects for the elite. Ivory was luxury, soft enough to carve, but precious to own. Whoever commissioned this piece was wealthy, but the inscription's tone suggests intimacy, a personal charm rather than an official inscription. In the Bronze Age, lice were a constant nuisance. There was no soap, no combs as fine as this one, no easy relief. People associated pests with bad luck, impurity, and sometimes divine displeasure.
Features and traces of the body it once belonged to. Although only the head survived, its size and quality indicate it was part of a larger decorative statue. The Sphinx in Roman culture symbolized protection, knowledge, and the power of guardianship. While Egyptian sphinxes were most commonly associated with pharaohs and temples, the Romans adapted the imagery for villas, gardens, and public buildings. Sphinx statues often appeared at entrances, staircases, and courtyards to serve as protective figures. They were also used in literary contexts where they symbolized the transition between life and death. The presence of a sphinx in Nijmegen shows that Roman elites living in the northern frontier adopted Mediterranean artistic traditions, even in distant territories. The sphinx head was discovered in a pit containing other architectural fragments. These included pieces of columns, wall decorations, and stone blocks from a building that once stood in the settlement. The mixture of materials indicates that the structure was dismantled in antiquity and the debris was reused or discarded. The Sphinx may have decorated a villa, a public bath, or an administrative building. Its high-quality craftsmanship suggests it belonged to an important structure rather than an ordinary home. Excavations at the site revealed layers of occupation dating back to the 1st and 2nd centuries CE, when Nijmegen was a significant Roman center. The discovery of the Sphinx in this context shows that the settlement enjoyed a level of cultural and economic connection with the Mediterranean world. Imported artworks were expensive, requiring long-distance dance transport and the approval of elite patrons. The Sphinx, therefore, reflects not only artistic taste, but also social status. Nearby archaeological features help reconstruct the environment in which the sculpture once stood. Foundations of large buildings suggest the presence of administrative or ceremonial spaces. Tiles, heating pipes, and decorated plaster indicate rooms with underfloor heating and painted walls consistent with Roman architectural standards. Such buildings often included decorative sculptures as part of their design. The Sphinx may have stood at the entrance of a formal hall or courtyard, where visitors would encounter it upon entry. Fragments of painted plaster found near the Sphinx show that walls in the nearby building were decorated with red, white, and blue pigments. These colors were common in Roman interior design. The presence of such decorative elements reinforces the idea that the complex belonged to wealthy residents or important officials. Combined with the Sphinx, these features indicate a deliberate attempt to recreate southern Roman culture in the northern provinces. The discovery also reflects the diversity of people living in Nijmegen at the time. Roman soldiers stationed here came from all parts of the empire, bringing their traditions and artistic preferences with them. Merchants, craftsmen, and local inhabitants interacted regularly with Roman officials. Imported luxury items symbolized the cultural blending that occurred along the frontier. The Sphinx head, though originally a Mediterranean object, became part of daily life in a northern settlement. Studies of the marble reveal patterns of tool marks consistent with Roman sculpting techniques. The carving shows skill in shaping facial features and hair, indicating that the work was produced by a trained artisan. The marble's grain and texture match stone from the Mediterranean region, supporting the idea that the sculpture was shipped to the Netherlands rather than carved locally. Transporting such a piece required careful packing and skilled labor, reflecting the value placed on decorative art. Archaeologists also examined the Sphinx's position within the pit. The head was broken from its body before burial, suggesting intentional destruction or dismantling. This could have occurred during renovations, structural collapse, or political changes. When Roman buildings fell into disuse, sculptures were often broken apart and reused as building material. The Sphinx may have suffered the same fate, buried during the transformation of the settlement. The context in which the Sphinx was found includes military barracks and civilian houses. This mixture reflects the changing role of Nijmegen across the centuries. The settlement evolved from a military fortress into a civilian town with markets, workshops, and administrative centers. The presence of luxury items like the Sphinx shows that some inhabitants lived in comfort comparable to residents of major Roman cities. Environmental remains from the site provide a picture of local life. Animal bones, seeds, and pottery fragments show diets based on grain, vegetables, livestock, and imported foods such as olives and wine. These goods arrived via river trade routes connecting the Rhine to the Roman heartland. The same routes likely carried the Sphinx to Nijmegen. The Sphinx discovery adds to the understanding of Roman frontier culture. While the region was far from Rome, its inhabitants adopted Roman customs, architecture, and artistic traditions. The presence of high-quality sculptures in distant provinces reflects the spread of Roman identity across the empire. It also shows how elite households displayed wealth and status through imported art. Additional excavations around Nijmegen continue to uncover evidence of Roman life. Streets, wells, workshops, and burial sites reveal a thriving community connected to the broader empire. The Sphinx contributes to this picture, offering a rare example of Mediterranean art found so far north. The site's researchers are now using 3D scanning to create digital models of the Sphinx head. These models help reconstruct the missing body and determine how the original statue looked. Comparisons with other Roman sphinxes indicate that the Nijmegen Sphinx may have had a reclining or seated posture commonly used in Roman sculpture. The digital reconstruction helps visualize the statue in its original architectural context. The discovery also encourages re-examination of other stone fragments found in the region. Pieces previously identified as architectural debris may actually belong to larger decorative programs that once adorned important buildings. The Sphinx prompts renewed interest in the artistic landscape of Roman Nijmegen. The sculpture's presence demonstrates that artistic symbols traveled far beyond their regions of origin. Egyptian-inspired motifs became part of Roman culture and spread across the empire. The Sphinx and Nijmegen reflect this cultural blending, illustrating how distant communities participated in a shared artistic tradition. Today, the Sphinx stands as a connection between the Netherlands and the ancient Roman world. Its discovery reshapes the understanding of local history, showing that even frontier regions held sophisticated art and architecture. The marble head preserved for centuries beneath the soil testifies to the reach of Roman influence and the complexity of life along the empire's northern border. The giant Moai Road of Rana Raraku. Rana Raraku, the volcanic quarry on Easter Island, has long been known as the birthplace of the island's iconic Moai statues. For centuries, questions surrounded how these massive stone figures were carved, transporting, and raised across the landscape. Recent excavations have revealed that the Moai were not simply moved from the quarry to different locations, but were part of a sacred processional route. The road leading out of Rana Raraku formed a ceremonial pathway shaped by ritual and cultural meaning rather than purely practical engineering. This discovery helps explain the deeper significance of the Moai and the landscape that surrounds them. The quarry at Ranoraku contains nearly half of all Moai on the island. Many lie partially buried, standing upright in pits that once held them during carving. Others remain attached to bedrock, showing different stages of the carving process. The Moai, carved from compressed volcanic ash, vary in size, but many reach heights of 10 meters or more. Their distinct features, elongated faces, heavy brows, and tall torsos, represent ancestral figures believed to hold spiritual power. The recent excavations focused on the ancient roads extending from the quarry. These roads, long covered by soil and vegetation, revealed compacted surfaces lined with stones. Their design shows that they were carefully constructed paths rather than simple transport routes. The roads slope gently upward toward the island's ceremonial platforms, known as a hahu. This upward incline made transport more difficult, but had symbolic importance, connecting the quarry to sacred spaces. Archaeologists found moai standing along the sides of these ancient roads. Many appear incomplete or abandoned, but their placement suggests intentional positioning rather than accidental abandonment. The statues were arranged to face inland, overlooking the paths. Their orientation indicates they may have served as guardians, watching over processions or marking stages of a ritual journey. This new interpretation challenges earlier ideas that the Moai along the roads were simply statues that fell during transport. Excavations revealed that the roads were engineered to curve gently around the island's terrain. Their width and construction show that they were designed for groups of people walking together rather than hauling heavy loads. The compacted surfaces and lined edges reflect repeated ceremonial use. Tools and stone flakes found beside the roads show that workers shaped and adjusted surfaces over time. These features suggest the roads functioned as spiritual pathways linked to ancestral worship. Analysis of soil layers indicates that vegetation once grew along the route. Pollen samples show evidence of native palms and shrubs that were part of the landscape during the height of Moai construction. These plants may have lined the processional route, enhancing its ceremonial atmosphere. The presence of water channels and small stone structures suggest the path included rest points or areas for ritual activities. The Moai themselves give clues about the route's purpose. Statues placed along the roads have unfinished backs or incomplete carving, yet their faces are fully formed. This pattern implies they were intended to stand along the route rather than be transporting further. Their placement would have created a continuous line of ancestral figures guiding participants along the sacred path from the quarry to the Yahoo. The quarry at Rana Raraku was more than a workshop. Excavations uncovered evidence of ritual activities, including pits filled with tools, pigments, and offerings. Some Moai show signs of intentional burial, suggesting ritual significance. Carving the statues was likely both a technical and spiritual act, connecting the community to its ancestors. The processional road extended this connection outward, linking the place of creation to the spaces where the statues were finally erected. The new understanding of the road also clarifies how the Moai were moved. Earlier theories suggested sliding or rolling the statues on logs. More recent experiments showed that teams could walk the statues upright using ropes and coordinated movement. The gentle curves of the ancient roads support this idea. The statues could be rocked forward in small steps, following the paths, curves, and slopes. This method aligns with oral traditions describing the Moai as walking to their destinations. Excavations along the road revealed tools used to shape the statues and maintain the path. These included basalt picks, scrapers, and hammerstones. Their distribution shows that craftsmen worked not only at the quarry, but also along the path, making adjustments as statues were moved. Some tools appear intentionally placed, possibly as offerings to ancestors or to bless the route. The processional route leads toward platforms located along the coastline. These platforms served as communal gathering places, ritual centers, and burial sites for elite individuals. The moai were positioned on top of these platforms, facing inland to watch over the villages. The connection between the quarry and the au underscores the moai's role as protectors and symbols of lineage. Moving a statue from Rano Raraku to an au may have represented the journey of an ancestor joining the living community. Studies of surrounding landscapes show that the processional route was part of a larger network of paths. These paths connected quarries, villages, agricultural fields, and coastal ceremonial spaces. The island's layout reflects a society with strong ties to ancestors and shared cultural practices. The roads at Rano Raraku were central to this system, linking production, ritual, and community identity. The discovery of the processional road changes the understanding of Easter Island's history. It shifts attention from how the statues were transporting to why they were moved, and how the journey itself formed part of their meaning. The movement of moai along the road may have been a communal ritual involving singing, coordination, and careful preparation. The statues likely represented ancestors guiding the community toward important ceremonies. Excavations at Rano Raraku also show that the quarry was a social and cultural gathering point. Evidence of tools, food remains, and temporary shelters suggest that workers lived at the site for extended periods. Their activities formed part of a larger ritual process. Stone carvings on the quarry walls depict human figures, animals, and symbols, providing insight into the beliefs and artistic expressions of the time. The road construction reflects technical skill. Builders created stable surfaces by layering stones, soil, and compacted materials. Drainage systems prevented erosion during rains. The well-preserved sections show that the road was maintained over generations. Its durability ensured that rituals could continue across centuries as new moai were carved and moved. The placement of moai along the road reveals a narrative sequence. Each statue may have marked a stage in the ceremonial journey or represented a member of a particular ancestral line. Their arrangement creates a visual story linking the quarry to the ahong. This arrangement adds depth to the beliefs surrounding the moai, showing that they were part of a system of ritual movement, not isolated monuments. Environmental changes eventually disrupted the processional system. Deforestation, soil erosion, and changing social dynamics led to the decline of moai construction. The roads fell into disuse, and the island's population faced significant challenges. Despite this decline, the roads and statues remained as reminders of a complex cultural system based on lineage, ritual, and engineering. Today, the excavated sections of the processional route give insight into one of the most remarkable achievements of the ancient Polynesian world. The discovery helps explain how the island's people integrated engineering, religion, and social organization into a unified cultural tradition. It reveals how the moai connected different parts of the landscape, creating a pathway of ancestors stretching from the quarry to the coastline. The giant moai road of Rano Raraku stands as a testament to the ingenuity and spiritual depth of the society that built it. The road reflects a worldview where the movement of statues was not just practical but ceremonial. Through continued research, the road and its statues continue to reveal the cultural landscape that shaped Easter Island's history, the lost necropolis of Saqqara's catacombs. The Saqqara Plateau in Egypt is one of the most expansive burial landscapes in the ancient world. Known for its step pyramid, mastabas, and royal tombs, Saqqara has been a center of ritual and burial activity for more than 3,000 years. Beneath its surface lies a vast network of tunnels, shafts, and chambers forming a multi-level necropolis unlike any other in Egypt. Recent excavations have revealed deep catacombs filled with thousands of mummified animals, statues, offering jars, and ritual objects. These discoveries show that Saqqara's underground world played a major role in religious life and served as a center for massive cult activity connected to several major deities. These tunnels were built during different periods, primarily from the late period through the Ptolemaic era. Their purpose was to house sacred animals associated with gods such as Bastet, Anubis, Ptah, and Thoth. The mummified remains show a large-scale ritual system in which animals were bred, prepared, and buried as offerings. This practice reflects a deep belief that certain animals could act as intermediaries between humans and the divine. One of the most extensive sections is the Bastion, the catacombs dedicated to Bastet, the feline goddess associated with protection and motherhood. Thousands of mummified cats were placed in the tunnels, wrapped in linen, and stored in niches carved into the walls. Some were placed in stone or wooden coffins, while others were wrapped in decorated bundles. Statues of Bastet made from bronze, wood, or faience were also found, along with votive offerings left by worshippers. Nearby lies the Anubian, the catacomb dedicated to the jackal god Anubis. This area contains mummified dogs, jackals, and foxes. Many animals were buried in large communal pits, while others were placed in carefully prepared chambers. Offerings found in the Anubian include miniature coffins, amulets, and small statues representing Anubis. The presence of these items indicates a ritual economy in which pilgrims purchased offerings to seek protection or blessings. Another important structure at Saqqara is the Sarapam, a massive underground complex where the Apis bulls were buried. These bulls were considered divine embodiments of the god Pa. Each bull had its own massive stone sarcophagus weighing several tons. The corridors of the Sapam stretch for hundreds of meters and reflect the high status of the Apis cult. The discovery of inscriptions, stele, and votive objects in this complex provides insight into the religious ceremonies carried out there. Recent excavations have expanded the understanding of Saqqara's underground network. Archaeologists uncovered new corridors connected to catacombs dedicated to the god Thoth, represented by ibises and baboons. Thousands of ibis mummies were placed in jars and lined up along tunnel walls. Some jars still contain dried remains with feathers and bones intact. Baboons, sacred animals associated with wisdom and the moon, were buried in separate chambers. Tools used for preparing mummies, such as resins, linen strips, and pottery jars, were found in workrooms near the entrances. These discoveries show that mummification was conducted on site, suggesting a highly organized system involving priests, embalmers, and workers. The presence of animal pens nearby indicates that many animals were raised specifically for ritual use. This large-scale operation formed an important part of the religious and economic life of the region. The architecture of the catacombs shows careful planning. Tunnels were carved with straight walls and vaulted ceilings. Shafts provided ventilation and access to deeper levels. Some corridors contain inscriptions marking the names of donors or priests responsible for particular sections. These inscriptions help establish a timeline for the use of the catacombs, showing continuous activity for several centuries. Artifacts found within the tunnels reveal details about worship practices. Bronze statues of deities were placed as offerings. Wooden coffins shaped like animals contained carefully wrapped remains. Lamps made from clay or bronze were used to light ceremonies deep underground. Many items show signs of handling and wear, reflecting repeated visits by worshippers. The discovery of large caches of statues has been one of the most significant findings. Over 100 statues of various deities were recovered in 2019 alone, including depictions of Pu Sekhmet, Hathor, and Nefertum. These statues were placed in sealed shafts alongside mummified animals and containers of oils. Their arrangement suggests they were part of a ritual deposit marking the end of a ceremonial period. Saqqara's underground necropolis also contains burial spaces for humans. Some priests associated with the animal cults were buried in chambers connected to the catacombs. Their coffins, amulets, and tertiary masks show high status. The presence of both human and animal burials indicates a complex relationship between religious professionals and the sacred creatures they served. Environmental studies within the tunnels reveal that airflow and humidity were controlled through architectural design. Narrow passages allowed cool air to circulate, preserving mummies over millennia. Soot marks on ceilings indicate that torches were used regularly, while pottery fragments show that offerings and meals were part of ritual activities. The combination of environmental and archaeological data helps reconstruct the movement patterns of worshippers and priests. The layout of the catacombs reflects different levels of access. Some areas were reserved for priests, while others were open to the public. Pilgrims traveled to Saqqara to seek healing, protection, or favor from the gods. They purchased votive mummies or statues, which were then placed in the catacombs by temple staff. This system created a large-scale religious industry that supported temple operations and state economy. The variety of mummification styles found in the catacombs demonstrates different levels of care and cost. Some animals were elaborately prepared with fine linen and resin, while others were wrapped quickly for use as a simple vote of offerings. This diversity reflects the economic range of worshippers. Wealthy donors could pay for elaborate offerings, while common visitors offered simpler forms of devotion. One of the most interesting discoveries is the presence of large communal chambers where animals were arranged in organized patterns. Rows of jars, bundles, and coffins line the walls almost like shelves in an underground archive. These chambers served as long-term repositories for offerings made over centuries. Their scale reveals the popularity of animal cults during the late period and Ptolemaic era. The rediscovery of new tunnels at Saqqara continues to reshape the understanding of ancient Egyptian religion. While the famous tombs and pyramids represent literary practices, the catacombs reveal a different side of religious life, one centered on public devotion, daily rituals, and widespread participation. The presence of thousands of mummified animals shows how ordinary people connected with gods through offerings that linked the natural and divine worlds. Excavations also highlight the engineering skill involved in constructing the underground necropolis. Workers carved tunnels through limestone, installed support beams, and maintained ventilation systems. The precision of the work suggests knowledge of structural stability and long-term preservation. These catacombs were built to last, serving as permanent homes for sacred animals and offerings. As research continues, archaeologists use digital mapping and 3D scanning to document the tunnels. These technologies help visualize the original layout and identify areas where new chambers may be hidden. Each excavation season adds new artifacts, inscriptions, and mummies to the growing picture of Saqqara's religious landscape. The lost necropolis of Saqqara's catacombs represents one of the most extensive ritual burial systems in Egypt. Its underground world reveals a complex network of worship, economy, and community life. Through thousands of offerings placed over centuries, the catacombs preserve the devotion of countless individuals who sought connection with the gods. Their rediscovery brings to light a vibrant and long-lasting tradition that shaped the spiritual identity of ancient Egypt. The Bronze Age star-shaped temple of Kazakhstan across the wide Kazakh steppe, where grasslands stretch to the horizon and the landscape appears almost untouched. Archaeologists recently uncovered a structure unlike anything previously found in Central Asia. Hidden beneath soil and wind-blown sand, the foundations of a star-shaped ritual complex emerged during surveys of Bronze Age settlements. The shape, a geometric star with multiple radiating arms, revealed a level of architectural planning and symbolic design not often associated with early steppe cultures. Its discovery provides new insight into the ceremonial life of communities who lived here nearly 4,000 years ago. The complex lies in a region dotted with burial mounds, stone circles, and early settlements linked to the Andronovo and related cultural groups. These were mobile herders who moved across the steppe with livestock. Yet, their archaeological record shows surprising sophistication. The star-shaped temple adds to this picture. Built with stone foundations arranged in precise angles, the structure covers a large area and stands out sharply from the surrounding features. Its shape suggests it was meant to be seen from a distance or observed from above, a unique trait among known Bronze Age monuments. Excavations revealed that the temple consisted of an outer star-shaped perimeter formed by thick stone walls. Each arm of the star created a separate compartment or courtyard, while the center held a raised, circular platform. This central area likely served as a focal point for ritual activities. Burnt offerings, ash deposits, and fragments of decorated pottery were found on the platform, indicating repeated ceremonial use. The structure's symmetry and alignment suggest that it held symbolic meaning for the community that built it. Archaeologists studying the layout noted that the arms of the star are oriented towards specific points on the horizon. Some align with sunrise or sunset on solstice days, while others mark intermediate directions. This pattern implies knowledge of celestial cycles and suggests the temple may have functioned as an astronomical marker. The open steppe provided a clear horizon for observing the sky, making it ideal for tracking seasonal change. The temple's alignment could have helped determine ritual calendars related to hearing or agricultural cycles. The materials used in construction provide clues about community effort. Large stones were transporting from nearby riverbeds and assembled into patterned walls. The amount of labor required suggests coordination among multiple families or clans. Construction likely took place over an extended period, with workers shaping stones, digging foundations, and arranging the star's geometry. Such effort indicates that the structure held significant importance within the cultural landscape. Artifacts found within the star-shaped temple show a mixture of everyday items and ceremonial goods. Pottery fragments include vessels with incised decorations typical of Bronze Age steppe cultures. Some pots were made specifically for burning incense or holding offerings, evidenced by residue and burn marks. Bronze pins, tools, and small ornaments were scattered across several compartments. These items may have been left during rituals or placed intentionally as offerings. Animal bones found at the site reveal that feasting formed part of the ritual activity. Burned bones of sheep, goat, and cattle were concentrated in specific areas near the central platform. Their arrangement suggests communal gatherings where participants shared food or performed sacrifices. The presence of ash layers and fire pits reinforces the idea of recurring ceremonies tied to social or seasonal events. Excavators also identified traces of pigments on some stones. Red and yellow mineral residues suggest that parts of the structure were once painted. The use of color in ritual spaces is common across ancient cultures and may have symbolized life, protection, or spiritual power. Painted stones would have increased the visual impact of the temple, making the star shape even more striking. Environmental studies help reconstruct the landscape during the temple's use. Thousands of years ago, the region experienced slightly wetter conditions, supporting lush grasslands and larger herds of animals. Seasonal movements of people and livestock shaped life on the steppe. The star-shaped temple may have served as a ritual center associated with these seasonal cycles. Its location near ancient migration routes suggests it was a gathering spot where groups met for ceremonies or trade. One of the most intriguing questions is the purpose behind the star shape. While star motifs appear in rock carvings and pottery across Central Asia, this is the first known case of a star-shaped structure built on such a large scale. The shape may represent celestial symbolism, linking the people to the sky and cosmic order. Stars played an important role in navigation and timekeeping for nomadic cultures. The temple could have embodied these beliefs in its architecture, merging cosmology with earthly ritual. Excavations around the outskirts of the temple uncovered small hearths and temporary shelters. These structures suggest that people camped near the site during ceremonies. Stone tools, pottery fragments, and food remains indicate short-term habitation. Such gatherings likely involved multiple clans or extended families, reinforcing social bonds and cultural identity. The temple may have served as a neutral ground where groups came together for important events. The discovery also offers clues about leadership within Bronze Age steppe societies. Building and maintaining a structure of this scale required organization and shared purpose. It suggests the presence of ritual specialists or leaders who guided the community's ceremonial life. These individuals may have overseen rituals, maintained the calendar, and ensured the temple remained a sacred location. As excavations continued, archaeologists identified buried pathways leading toward the star complex. These paths appear worn and compacted, indicating regular foot traffic. Their alignment with the star's arms suggests that participants approach the temple from specific directions during ceremonies. The pathways help reconstruct movement patterns and ceremonial processions associated with the site. Radiocarbon dating places the temple's primary use between 1500 and 1200 BCE, a period when steppe cultures were undergoing change. Metalwork expanded. Long-distance dance trade networks grew and communities adopted new technologies. The temple reflects this era of cultural development. Its design shows influences from both local traditions and wider regional interactions. Chemical analysis of soil samples from the central platform reveals traces of aromatic resins, plant oils, and burned seeds. These substances may have been used in rituals involving incense, purification, or symbolic offerings. Their presence indicates that the ceremonies performed here involved sensory elements such as smell and fire. These findings help bring the rituals to life, showing how the space may have been experienced by those who gathered. The temple's star shape also raises questions about symbolic meaning. Some researchers propose that it reflects cosmological models linking Earth and sky. Others suggest it may represent unity among clans or directions of the steppe. The exact meaning remains uncertain, but the complexity of the design shows that the builders held sophisticated conceptual ideas. Modern imaging techniques allow researchers to create digital reconstructions of the temple. These models show how the structure appeared when intact, with raised walls, painted stones, and a prominent central platform. The reconstructions help visualize ceremonies and place the site within the broader Bronze Age landscape. The star-shaped temple stands as a reminder that steppe cultures were not simply nomadic herders, but people with rich spiritual traditions and architectural knowledge. The structure reveals a society capable of coordinated construction, symbolic design, and long-term planning. It challenges earlier assumptions that monumental architecture was limited to settled agricultural civilizations. The discovery of the Bronze Age star-shaped temple of Kazakhstan adds an important chapter to the archaeology of Central Asia. It highlights the creativity and cultural depth of the communities who lived on the steppe and shows how their beliefs shaped the environment around them. As excavations and research continue, the temple remains one of the most intriguing and visually striking monuments of the ancient steppe world. The Bronze Age petroglyph canyon of Tamgaly. In the foothills of southeastern Kazakhstan lies a narrow canyon where stone cliffs hold one of the richest collections of ancient rock art in Central Asia, known as Tamgaly. This site contains more than 5,000 petroglyphs carved over several millennia. Among them are images of sun-headed deities, ritual scenes, animals, chariots, warriors, and symbols linked to Bronze Age communities that lived in the region. The canyon served not only as a natural shelter, but as a sacred landscape where generations carved their beliefs, fears, and identity into the rock. The canyon's petroglyphs are spread across multiple terraces and rock faces. The oldest and most significant carvings date to the Middle and Late Bronze Age, around 1500 to 1000 BCE. These early carvings stand out due to their size, depth, and stylistic detail. Many feature anthropomorphic figures with large circular halos or sundisks around their heads. These sun-headed gods are unique to the Tamgaly region and appear repeatedly in ritual scenes. Their presence suggests a cosmology that's centered on solar power, divine protection, and possibly ancestral spirits represented through light. The rock art is arranged in clusters. Each cluster appears to represent a ceremonial stage or gathering point. The largest and most important clusters contain images of deities in central positions surrounded by worshippers or animals. Some carvings show figures raising their arms in gestures of reverence. Others depict processions or dance-like movements. The arrangement suggests that the canyon served as a long-term ceremonial site where rituals were performed at designated points along the rock faces. The sun-headed deities are among the most striking figures. They often appear as tall humanoid shapes with radiating halos. Their bodies are stylized with elongated limbs and minimal detail. The halo is usually drawn as a large circle with rays or additional lines. These figures may represent gods, ancestors, or cosmic beings. Their repetition across the canyon suggests a central role in Bronze Age belief systems compared to other rock art traditions across the Eurasian steppe. Tamgaly's solar figures are distinct, indicating that the site held unique spiritual importance for the communities that carved them. Surrounding the deities are numerous carvings of animals. These include bulls, horses, camels, goats, and deer. Many animals appear in dynamic poses, running, fighting, or interacting with human figures. Horses and bulls are especially prominent in ritual scenes. Their significance likely relates to economic and symbolic roles within Bronze Age steppe culture. Bulls appear in scenes of sacrifice or power. While horses may represent prestige or mobility, the natural abundance of wildlife in the region made these animals central to daily life, but their placement in ritual clusters suggests symbolic meaning beyond simple representation. Certain carvings depict scenes of mating animals, hunting parties, or herding. These images may reflect seasonal cycles, fertility, or communal activities. The Bronze Age communities of the region lived primarily as herders and early farmers, and seasonal migrations shaped their lifestyles. The canyon may have served as a fixed ceremonial point within a shifting landscape. Returning to the same place over generations allowed symbolic continuity even as groups moved across the steppe. One of the most intriguing aspects of Tamgaly is the presence of ritual and sacrificial scenes. Figures appear holding objects, possibly ritual tools or offerings. Some scenes show human-animal interaction with symbolic postures. The alignment of figures suggests choreographed activity, possibly linked to ceremonies conducted in the canyon. Archaeologists found evidence of hearths, temporary shelters, and small stone structures near the petroglyph clusters, indicating that gatherings took place here. The canyon's natural acoustics and protective walls made it an ideal setting for rituals involving sound, movement, and fire. The surrounding landscape provides further clues. The canyon opens onto a broad valley used historically for herding. The rock faces are positioned to catch sunlight in dramatic ways during mornings and evenings. Sunlight illuminates specific carvings at certain times of the year, particularly around solstices. This alignment supports the idea that the site was designed with astronomical awareness. The sun-headed deities may symbolize solar cycles that were essential for managing herding, planting, and seasonal migrations. Archaeological layers near the main clusters contain pottery fragments, stone tools, and hearth remains. These materials indicate that groups camped in the canyon during rituals or gatherings. Some hearths contain burnt animal bones, suggesting feasting or ritual sacrifice. The repeated presence of burned materials in specific locations shows continuity of ceremonies over centuries. These gatherings likely involved multiple families or clans coming together for important events tied to seasonal transitions, alliances, or social celebrations. The petroglyphs were carved using stone tools that chipped away the rock's dark surface to reveal lighter layers underneath. This technique created strong contrast, allowing figures to remain visible even after thousands of years. The depth and clarity of Bronze Age carvings suggests skilled artisans who understood the qualities of the stone. Many carvings overlap, showing that the canyon remained in use long after its earliest carvings were made. Later periods added new figures. Scythian, Turk, and even medieval groups contributed carvings, but the earliest Bronze Age scenes remain the most complex and symbolically dense. One notable scene shows three sun-headed figures standing together, surrounded by smaller human shapes. Their arrangement suggests a pantheon or group of divine beings. Another carving shows a large figure with a halo holding a staff-like object flanked by animals. Such images may represent rituals of power, authority, or leadership. The canyon may have served as a place where political and spiritual authority intersected and where leaders performed ceremonies to legitimize their roles. The petroglyphs also reveal clues about technological development. Carvings of chariots drawn by horses appear in later Bronze Age layers. These chariots reflect early adoption of wheeled transport and warfare technologies in the region. Their presence shows that the people who carved these walls were connected to broader cultural developments across the Eurasian steppe. As excavation and documentation continue, researchers use digital imaging and 3D scanning to record the petroglyphs. These technologies help reveal faded carvings, overlapping layers, and chronological sequences by analyzing the depth, style, and patination of the carvings. Archaeologists can separate Bronze Age figures from later additions. This process helps reconstruct the evolution of beliefs and artistic traditions across millennia. The canyon's role as a sacred landscape lasted far beyond the Bronze Age. Later communities reused the site but retained elements of its symbolic importance. Burial mounds, small shrines, and ritual stones were added in different periods. This continuity suggests that the canyon's spiritual significance was deeply rooted in its geography, acoustics, and visual presence. The Bronze Age petroglyphs of Tamgaly offer one of the most detailed windows into the spiritual world of ancient steppe societies. The sun-headed gods, ritual scenes, and animal representations form a complex symbolic system that reflects cosmology, community identity, and daily life. The canyon served as a gathering place for ceremonies, a visual record of belief, and a connection between people in the natural world. Its carvings, preserved for thousands of years, continue to reveal the depth and creativity of the cultures that once lived across the vast Kazakh steppe, the terrace of the lost city of Ciudad Perdida. Deep within the mountains of Colombia's Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta lies a city hidden for centuries beneath dense rainforest. Known today as Ciudad Perdida, the lost city, this ancient settlement consists of vast stone terraces, stairways, and platforms carved into steep hillsides. Archaeological evidence shows that it was built around 800 CE, making it at least 6 centuries older than Machu Picchu. The city's rediscovery revealed the scale and sophistication of the Tairona civilization, an indigenous culture that flourished long before European arrival. The city is perched high on ridges overlooking deep valleys and river systems. Its builders transformed the rugged terrain into a network of terraces connected by stone paths and staircases. These terraces formed living platforms, ceremonial plazas, and agricultural areas. The design reflects a deep understanding of mountain engineering. Rather than clearing flat land, the Tairona reshaped the mountains themselves, stabilizing slopes with retaining walls and using natural contours to manage water flow. One of the most striking features of Ciudad Perdida is its circular stone platforms. More than 200 platforms exist across the site, arranged at different elevations. The largest form broad plazas where communal gatherings, ceremonies, or markets may have taken place. Smaller platforms supported houses made from wood and thatch. The circular form is characteristic of Tirona architecture, symbolizing harmony, balance, and the connection between community and landscape. The platforms also helped protect structures from erosion and tropical rainfall. A complex network of stone stairways links the different areas of the city. Some stairways climb steep slopes for hundreds of steps, carved directly into bedrock or assembled from fitted stones. These paths follow natural ridges and drainages, reflecting careful planning. The stairways allowed movement across the settlement and connected Ciudad Perdida to surrounding villages. Archaeologists traced ancient routes linking the city to coastal areas, showing that it was part of a broader network of trade and communication. The Tirona people who built Ciudad Perdida developed a thriving culture in the mountains. They farmed crops such as maize, cassava, and fruits using terrace fields to prevent soil loss. They were skilled gold workers, producing intricate jewelry and ritual objects using advanced metalwork techniques. Many gold pieces contain symbolic designs representing animals, spirits, and natural forces. These artifacts show that Ciudad Perdida was not an isolated site, but a center of cultural and spiritual life. Archaeological excavations uncovered evidence of long-term occupation. Layers of domestic debris, pottery, tools, and food remains reveal centuries of continuous use. House sites show repeated rebuilding with newer floors laid over older ones. Fire pits, grinding stones, and ceramic vessels provide insight into household activities. The presence of spindle horse textile production, while stone tools suggest woodworking and agricultural preparation. The city's location provided strategic advantages. Surrounded by dense forest and steep terrain, it was naturally protected. The high elevation reduced disease pressure from mosquitoes and allowed access to clean mountain water. Springs and channels run through the site, feeding stone drains that direct water across terraces. This water management system prevented flooding during heavy rains and ensured constant supply for domestic and ceremonial use. Ciudad Perdida likely served as a political and spiritual center for the Terra. Large open plazas and elevated platforms suggest spaces for rituals or gatherings involving leaders, priests, or community members. Some terraces appear to have served as sacred areas used for ceremonies connecting people with ancestral spirits or natural forces. The Tirona cosmology viewed mountains, rivers, and forests as living beings, and the city's design reflects this worldview. Architecture blended with nature, creating a landscape where daily life and spiritual practice were intertwined. Burials found near the city offer important clues about social structure. Some graves contain fine gold ornaments, beads, and high-quality ceramics, indicating individuals of elevated status. Others contain simpler offerings. The variation suggests a society with distinct roles: leaders, artisans, farmers, and spiritual specialists. Bodies were often placed in stone-lined tombs, with offerings intended to accompany the deceased into the spiritual world. During the Spanish colonial period, the Tyrians were pushed from many of their settlements, and Ciudad Perdida gradually became overtaken by forest. Oral traditions of indigenous groups preserved the memory of the sacred site, but its precise location remained hidden from outsiders. In the 1970s, looters stumbled upon the city and removed valuable artifacts. Their activities eventually led archaeologists to the site, and official excavations began. The Colombian government and indigenous communities now work together to protect and manage Ciudad Perdida. Modern archaeology emphasizes collaboration with the indigenous Kai, Arhuaco, Wiwa, and Cuomo peoples, descendants of the Tirona. These communities regard Ciudad Perdida as a sacred landscape known to them as Tuna. Their ceremonial practices continue in the region, and they play a central role in guiding research and visitation. Their perspective helps interpret the site's symbolic meanings, emphasizing continuity between past and present. Excavations revealed extensive stone engineering throughout the city. Massive retaining walls support terraces and prevent landslides. Carefully cut stones interlock with minimal gaps, reflecting skill and masonry. Drainage channels run beneath certain platforms, carrying water away from living areas. These features show understanding of geology, hydrology, and structural stability. The construction methods allowed the city to endure centuries of rainfall and erosion. Archaeologists mapped the layout of Ciudad Perdida to understand its social organization. The city spreads across several hillsides connected by paths. Some areas contain clusters of platforms that may have housed extended families. Others hold larger ceremonial spaces. The organization suggests that different groups lived in separate sectors but gathered in central plazas for collective events. The city's design reflects a balance between private life and communal identity. The surrounding region contains smaller settlements that fed into Ciudad Perdida's authority. Terraces outside the city show evidence of farming activities. Stone paths lead to river valleys where trade occurred. Goods such as salt, shells, tools, and gold flowed through these routes. The city likely functioned as a hub where exchange, ritual, and decision-making converged. Artifacts found at the site help reconstruct daily activities. Pottery styles vary between utilitarian cooking vessels and finely decorated ceremonial pieces. Stone tools include axes, knives, and mortars. Gold artifacts include nose ornaments, pendants, and small figurines.
Many items show symbolic motifs such as birds, serpents, and geometric patterns linked to Terrano beliefs. Shutapura's rediscovery reshaped the understanding of ancient Andean and South American civilizations. While Machu Picchu is more widely known, Terrano engineering and urban planning in Colombia reveal a parallel tradition of mountain construction. The terraces, platforms, and stairways demonstrate a complex society with deep spiritual and environmental knowledge. The city's age and scale highlight its importance as one of the earliest large mountain settlements in the region. Today, accessing Ciudad Perdida requires a multi-day trek through dense rainforest. Visitors cross rivers, climb steep trails, and pass indigenous settlements along the way. The final ascent involves hundreds of stone steps leading to the first terraces. This journey echoes the ancient routes that connected the city to the rest of the region. The physical approach reinforces the sense of entering a place shaped not only by human hands, but also by the spirit of the mountains and forest. The terrace of the lost city of Ciudad Perdida remains one of the most impressive examples of Precolian engineering in South America. Its terraces, stairways, and platforms reveal a society that blended environmental mastery with spiritual tradition. The city stands as a reminder of the resilience and creativity of the Terrano people, whose legacy continues through the indigenous communities that protect and honor this enduring sacred landscape. The Temple of Amada in the far reaches of ancient Nubia, along a quiet stretch of the Nile, where the desert rises sharply from the riverbanks, stands one of the oldest and best-preserved temples of the New Kingdom. The Temple of Amada was built more than 3,500 years ago. This small but richly decorated sanctuary survived the passage of time. Largely untouched, protected by its remote location and desert conditions, its walls still carry vivid colors, delicate inscriptions, and scenes that reveal not only religious devotion, but also the shifting politics of Egypt's presence in Nubia. The temple was founded during the reign of Thutmose III and expanded by his successor Amenhotep II. It was dedicated to Amun-Ra and Ra-Hori, major deities of the Egyptian pantheon. Although modest in size, Amada served as a spiritual and administrative center for Egyptian officials stationed in Nubia during a period when the empire extended deep into the south. The temple symbolized Egyptian authority, celebrated royal victories, and reinforced cultural ties between Egypt and the Nubian population. The structure consists of a small entrance hall, a hypostyle room with 2 pillars, and a sanctuary containing niches and carved reliefs. What makes the temple exceptional is the preservation of its painted decoration. Within the sanctuary, scenes remain bright with reds, yellows, blues, and greens, showing rituals performed by pharaohs before the gods. The dry desert environment and the temple's later relocation kept these paintings remarkably intact. Today, they provide one of the clearest windows into the new artistic style outside the larger temples of Thebes. The outer walls carry inscriptions describing military campaigns and political events. One famous text commemorates the victories of Amenhotep II, recording his interactions with foreign rulers and the capture of prisoners of war. Another inscription from a later period was added by Seti I, reflecting how the temple continued to serve as a site of royal communication long after its construction. These historical texts help reconstruct the relationship between Egypt and its southern territories, showing diplomacy, conflict, and administrative control. Inside the temple, the reliefs depict pharaohs offering incense, water, and food to Amun-Ra, Mut, and other deities. Figures are carved with precision, showing traditional poses and detailed clothing. In many scenes, kings stand before the gods receiving symbols of power. The themes reinforce the idea that the temple functioned as a place where divine approval was acknowledged and royal legitimacy was renewed. The images also highlight the importance of religious ceremonies in maintaining political authority in distant provinces. The Temple of Amada's remote location contributed to its survival. After Egypt's control over Nubia diminished during the late period, many temples in the region were abandoned or repurposed. Amada, situated far from major settlements, avoided large-scale damage. Sand accumulation buried parts of the structure, protecting the reliefs from erosion. Travelers occasionally recorded the temple's presence, but it remained largely unknown to the outside world until modern archaeology began documenting Nubian sites. In the 1960s, construction of the Aswan High Dam threatened to submerge many ancient monuments under the rising waters of Lake Nasser. To save the Temple of Amada, engineers and archaeologists undertook a massive relocation effort. Unlike larger temples that were dismantled and rebuilt block by block, Amada was moved in one piece. The structure was mounted on a steel platform and transported uphill over several kilos to higher ground. This careful process preserved the interior decoration and ensured the temple remained structurally intact. The relocation revealed details about the building's construction. Blocks of sandstone were cut precisely and fitted without large gaps. Pigments used for painting included mineral-based colors that adhered well to the carved surfaces. Traces of earlier repair work from ancient times show that the temple was maintained throughout its active use. The combination of careful construction and desert preservation allowed its artwork to survive in impressive condition. Archaeological study of the temple's surrounding area uncovered traces of ancient habitation, including storage rooms, administrative buildings, and small chapels. These finds suggest that the temple formed part of a larger complex serving both religious and political functions. Egyptian officials stationed in Nubia oversaw trade, mining operations, and local governance. The temple acted as a focal point for these activities, reinforcing Egypt's presence and cultural influence. One of the most valuable aspects of the temple is its preserved color. On many walls, the hues remain vibrant even after thousands of years. Scenes show Amun Ra with blue and yellow tones, while royal clothing retains reds and whites that contrast sharply with the sandstone background. These preserved pigments provide rare evidence of how Egyptian temples once appeared. Many surviving temples in other regions lost their colors due to exposure, but at Amada, the dry climate allowed the original palette to endure. Detailed study of the reliefs reveals differences between artistic periods. Scenes from the early New Kingdom show sharp outlines and strong contrasts, while later additions exhibit smoother lines and slightly different proportions. These variations help date phases of renovation and expansion. Some reliefs show erased or reworked cardaces, reflecting political changes, such as the corrections made during the reign of Seth Skithst. The temple's inscriptions also offer insight into diplomatic relationships. Texts refer to gifts sent by foreign rulers, including tribute from Nubia and nearby regions. These offerings included gold, cattle, and exotic goods. The temple served not only as a religious site, but also as a record-keeping center, documenting political events important to Egypt's southern administration. Environmental studies around the temple reveal how the landscape changed over time. Ancient channels and agricultural features show that the area once supported farms and small settlements. Seasonal flooding provided water for fields, while nearby cliffs offered natural protection. As political control shifted, these settlements declined, and the desert slowly reclaimed the region. The temple became isolated, preserved by its solitude. Today, the Temple of Amada stands in a protected area overlooking the waters of Lake Nasser. Visitors can see the preserved reliefs up close, gaining insight into the artistry of the New Kingdom. The sanctuary remains the most impressive part of the complex, with walls covered in painted scenes that appear much as they did when carved. The combination of color, detail, and historical inscriptions makes Amada one of the most important Nubian temples for understanding ancient Egyptian expansion. The temple's survival tells a broader story about resilience. Built more than 3 millennia ago, it endured political shifts, environmental changes, abandonment, and the threat of flooding. Its relocation required international cooperation and engineering innovation, symbolizing the global effort to preserve ancient heritage. The structure now stands as a testament to both ancient craftsmanship and modern preservation. The Temple of Amada continues to reveal information through ongoing research. New imaging techniques help analyze pigments, inscriptions, and carving methods. Conservation work ensures that the colors remain stable despite exposure to visitors and changing humidity. Each study adds to the understanding of the temple's role in ancient Nubia and its significance in Egyptian history. Today, the Temple of Amada represents a rare combination of age, artistic preservation, and historical depth. Its walls offer a vivid glimpse into religious life during the height of the New Kingdom and document Egypt's far-reaching influence in Nubia. Through its survival and restoration, the temple stands as one of the most important monuments along the Nile, preserving the colors, stories, and rituals of a civilization that shaped the ancient world. The local dockyard of the Indus Valley on the western coast of India, surrounded by salt flats and quiet fields, lies one of the most remarkable engineering achievements of the ancient world, the dockyard of Lothal. Built more than 4,000 years ago by the Indus Valley civilization, this basin is considered one of the earliest known dockyards on Earth. Its discovery revealed that the people of Lothal were not only skilled craftsmen and merchants, but also pioneers in maritime architecture and long-distance trade. Lothal sits near the Gulf of Combat, an area where tidal waters rise and fall dramatically. Thousands of years ago, rivers flowed more strongly here, connecting Lothal to the Arabian Sea. The Indus Valley engineers took advantage of these waterways by constructing a large basin capable of holding ships safely during tidal cycles. The dockyard is rectangular in shape, measuring roughly 218 m by 37 m, with walls made from carefully laid burnt bricks. These bricks, standardized in size, demonstrate the Indus Valley's consistent building system. The dockyard was connected to the river through a spill channel that managed water flow. This channel allowed water to enter the basin during high tide and drain during low tide. Such hydraulic engineering is remarkable considering its age. The dockyard's design protected ships from strong currents and ensured that vessels could be loaded, repaired, or anchored without the risk of damage. The presence of a warehouse nearby with stone foundations and evenly spaced rooms suggests that goods were stored immediately after arrival. Archaeologists uncovered evidence that Lothal was a major trading hub. Items found at the site include beads, shells, pottery, ivory, and copper tools. Many of these goods came from distant regions such as Mesopotamia, Oman, and the interior of the Indian subcontinent. Indian seals discovered at Mesopotamian sites mention trading partners and merchants likely connected to Lothal. These seals feature animals, symbols, and scripts that served as identification markers in commercial transactions. The bead industry at Lothal was especially famous. Craftsmen shaped semi-precious stones like carnelian, agate, and lapis lazuli into beads using fine drills and polishing tools. Waste flakes, broken beads, and kiln remains found across the site reveal a highly organized production center. The precision of the beads indicates advanced craftsmanship. Many beads from Lothal have been found in ancient sites outside India, showing the reach of their trade networks. Excavations revealed a carefully planned city layout. Streets run in a grid pattern lined with houses made from baked bricks. Drains run along the edges of streets, leading wastewater into soak pits. This drainage system reflects the Indus Valley's emphasis on cleanliness and public health. Town planning at Lothal shows consistency with other Indian cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, though adapted to local environmental needs. Near the dockyard stands a large platform, identified as a warehouse. The platform's surface contains a grid of brick-lined cubicles that likely stored trade goods. A large number of seal impressions were found near the structure, supporting its role in commercial activity. Goods arriving from ships would have been cataloged, sealed, and stored here before distribution to other regions. One of the most important structures at Lothal is the Acropolis, a raised platform containing administrative and ritual buildings. Although smaller than Acropolis structures in other Indian cities, it suggests a social hierarchy and governance system. Officials likely oversaw trade, managed artisans, and maintained the dockyard's operations. The Acropolis also housed elite residences that show evidence of specialized construction techniques. Evidence of metalwork, shellcraft, and pottery production shows that Lothal was a multi-industry center. Workshops produced tools, ornaments, and containers for local use and trade. Kilns, furnaces, and raw material deposits allow archaeologists to reconstruct the economic structure of the city. The wide range of industries reflects a thriving community supported by trade and craftsmanship. Environmental studies reveal that Lothal's prosperity depended heavily on water management. Geological analysis shows that rivers near the city shifted over time as natural channels changed, silt built up, and water flow decreased. These environmental changes eventually made it difficult for the dockyard to function. The decline of the Indus Valley civilization coincided with these shifts, suggesting that Lothal's economic base weakened when maritime routes became unreliable. Despite environmental challenges, the engineering of the dockyard remains impressive. Its brick-lined walls show no signs of hasty construction. The spill channel was carefully angled to control water flow. The basin's depth, originally several meters deeper than it is today, was designed to accommodate boats during different tidal stages. Archaeologists found evidence of wooden structures and mooring posts along the basin's edge, indicating that ships were secured using ropes tied to beams. The presence of a freshwater well near the dockyard suggests that sailors and merchants had reliable access to drinking water. Wells across the city were lined with bricks arranged in a spiraling pattern, reinforcing their strength. These engineering choices reflect advanced knowledge of construction and hydraulics. Pieces of pottery found in domestic areas show that Lothal residents use standardized shapes for cooking, storage, and trade. Some vessels contain traces of grains, fish, or oil, offering insight into diet and daily life. The variety of animal bones suggests that people consumed fish, cattle, goats, and shellfish. The proximity to the coast provided a mixed economy of farming, fishing, and trade. Religious life at Lothal is harder to reconstruct, but small altars and fire pits found in some houses suggest ritual activities. Figurines made from terracotta depict animals and human shapes, possibly used in ceremonies or storytelling. A fire altar discovered near the Acropolis resembles structures found in other Indian sites linked to ritual practices. Lothal's decline occurred gradually as river channels shifted and silt filled the dockyard. Maritime activity decreased. Floods damaged workshops and homes, forcing residents to rebuild multiple times. Eventually, trade routes changed, and the city lost its central economic role. By the end of the second millennium BCE, Lothal was largely abandoned, leaving behind the ruins that tell its story today. Modern excavations and conservation efforts aim to protect the dockyard and associated structures from erosion. Archaeologists continue to study soil layers, artifacts, and architectural features to reconstruct the city's history. Digital models help visualize how the dockyard operated and how ships entered and exited during high tide. The Lothal dockyard stands as a testament to the ingenuity of the Indus Valley civilization. It shows that ancient engineers understood tides, water control, and large-scale construction. It reflects a society engaged in long-distance trade, skilled craftsmanship, and organized administration. Through its preserved ruins, Lothal reveals the complexity and sophistication of one of the world's earliest urban cultures. Today, the site remains one of India's most important archaeological landmarks. The dockyard's walls, though weathered, still outline the basin where ships once anchored. The city's grid, the warehouse blocks, and the workshops offer a window into life 4,000 years ago. The achievements of Lothal's builders continue to inspire studies of ancient maritime history and highlight the remarkable capabilities of the Indus Valley people. The ancient city of Ani. On a windswept plateau in eastern Turkey near the border with Armenia stands the abandoned medieval city of Ani. Once known as the City of 101 Churches, Ani was a thriving urban center nearly 1,000 years ago. Today, its stone buildings rise unexpectedly from rolling grasslands preserved by isolation and silence. The city's empty streets, collapsed roofs, and standing walls give the impression of a place frozen in time, an entire medieval capital left open to the sky. Ani first emerged as a fortified settlement in late antiquity, but it rose to prominence during the 10th and 11th centuries when it became the capital of the Big Armenian Kingdom. Its location along major trade routes connecting Central Asia, the Caucasus, and the Middle East helped it develop into a wealthy commercial center. Written sources describe Ani as a bustling metropolis filled with merchants, craftsmen, and travelers from distant regions. The city's architecture reflects this prosperity. The ruins include churches, mosques, palaces, merchant homes, and defensive structures spread across a high plateau bordered by deep river gorges. The most prominent landmark is the Cathedral of Ani, designed by the architect Tradat. Its pointed arches and tall interior space represent advanced engineering for its time. Although the roof collapsed long ago, the walls still stand tall, showing the scale and ambition of medieval Armenian architecture. Nearby, the Church of the Redeemer once held a relic believed to be a fragment of the true cross. The building originally had a full circular design, but today only half remains standing. Its preserved portion shows intricate stone carvings, geometric patterns, and decorative arches that reflect the craftsmanship of the period. Across the plateau stands the Church of St. Gregory of Tig in Hunitz, notable for its interior fresco depicting biblical scenes. These frescoes, though faded, provide rare examples of medieval Armenian painting preserved in situ. One of the city's most striking structures is the Church of St. Gregory of the Abakamrants family. Its conical dome and robust exterior walls represent a classic style of Armenian ecclesiastical architecture. The structure's interior still displays carved capitals and stone benches, offering a glimpse into medieval worship practices. Together, these churches contribute to Ani's reputation as a spiritual and architectural center. Beyond its religious buildings, Ani also contains evidence of commercial life. Excavations uncovered remains of shops, workshops, and storage rooms. Pottery fragments, metal tools, and coins reveal a thriving economy based on trade and craftsmanship. The city's strategic location placed it along the Silk Road, allowing merchants to exchange goods such as textiles, ceramics, metals, and spices. The presence of caravan routes is reflected in wide streets and large open squares designed to accommodate travelers and traders. Fortifications surrounding Ani show how the city protected itself. Massive stone walls with towers and gates encircle the plateau. These walls were expanded by different rulers, each adding new layers of defense. Excavations show that the walls once stood several meters higher and were topped with wooden walkways for guards. Their scale demonstrates the importance of security in a region frequently contested by empires. Despite its prosperity, Ani experienced repeated cycles of conflict. Control of the city passed among Armenian, Byzantine, Seljuk, Georgian, and Mongol rulers. Each period left traces in the architecture: mosques built during Seljuk rule, inscriptions from Georgian governors, and defensive modifications linked to Mongol presence. One of the most notable Islamic structures is the Menusher Mosque. Considered the oldest surviving mosque in Anatolia, its tall minaret and rectangular prayer hall reflect early Seljuk architectural influences. Earthquakes played a major role in the city's decline. A severe earthquake in 1319 damaged many buildings and contributed to depopulation. As trade routes shifted and political control changed, Ani gradually lost its importance. By the 17th century, it was mostly abandoned. Over time, soil, wind, and vegetation filled streets and courtyards, but the dry climate helped preserve the stone structures. The result is a cityscape that still reflects its medieval form. Archaeological surveys reveal that Ani once supported a large population. Residential areas contain clusters of stone houses built along narrow lanes. Some homes include underground storage pits, ovens, and courtyards. Wells and water channels indicate that residents use both groundwater and river sources. The city's urban layout shows hierarchical organization, with religious and administrative buildings located on high terraces, while residential quarters filled the lower slopes. One of the most fascinating features of Ai is its system of underground passages and cave dwellings carved into cliffs along the surrounding gorges. These caves served as storage spaces, shelters, and in some cases small monasteries. Carved steps, niches, and doorways remain visible today. These underground areas show how the city adapted to its environment and made use of natural formations for practical and religious purposes. The surrounding landscape contributes significantly to An's atmosphere. The city sits on a plateau with steep drops along its borders. The Acheron River flows through a deep canyon to the east, forming a natural barrier. The openness of the plateau creates a sense of vastness. This geography protected the city in ancient times and preserves its sense of isolation today. Visitors often describe Aya as a place where the past feels unusually present. Archaeological projects at Ai continue to uncover new details. Excavations have focused on stabilizing buildings, documenting inscriptions, and studying artifacts. Ceramic analysis helps determine trade connections, while architectural studies reveal construction techniques used by different cultural groups. Conservation work is essential because many structures remain fragile. Stabilizing walls, reinforcing foundations, and restoring fresco require careful planning to preserve authenticity. The city's ruins also reveal cultural interaction. Armenian churches include architectural influences from Byzantine and Persian styles. Seljuk additions show Islamic artistic traditions such as geometric motifs and stylized calligraphy. These layers reflect a position as a crossroads between civilizations. The city's multicultural past adds depth to its archaeological significance. Today, and lies within Turkey, but remains close to the Armenian border, making it a place of shared heritage. Both countries recognize the cultural value of the site. International organizations support preservation efforts, emphasizing that AI represents a historic landscape shaped by multiple cultures and periods. Its monuments offer insight into medieval engineering, artistic expression, and urban design. Walking through air, one can trace the outlines of streets, enter roofless churches, and look through windows that once faced busy markets. The absence of modern development allows the city's original layout to remain clear. Although the buildings are in ruins, their walls stand strong enough to convey the complexity of the city's past. The open spaces between structures reflect public squares and gathering areas once filled with daily activity. The ancient city of Aya remains one of the most visually striking archaeological sites in the region. Its churches, fortifications, and urban layout provide a detailed picture of medieval life in the Caucasus region. Its isolation preserved it, and its rediscovery revealed a forgotten capital with deep cultural and architectural importance. Through ongoing research and conservation, AI continues to share the story of a city that once stood at the center of trade, religion, and political power, the Minoan Palace of Phaistos. On the southern side of Crete, where the Saqqara plain opens like a wide bowl beneath distant mountains, stands one of the most impressive centers of Bronze Age Aeon, the Palace of Phaistos, built and rebuilt over centuries by the Minoan civilization. The palace is known for its grand staircases, open courtyards, storerooms, and complex layout. It is also tied to one of archery's most enduring mysteries, the Phaistos disc, a fired clay object stamped with symbols unlike anything else in the ancient world. Together, the palace and its artifacts reveal the sophistication and complexity of Minoan. The palace sits on a low hill overlooking fertile lands that supported agriculture for thousands of years. Its location allowed control over trade routes crossing the Saqqara plain and access to coastal ports to the south. Excavations show that Phaistos was already an important center in the early Bronze Age, but its first massive palace was built around 1900 BCE. This structure suffered destruction likely from an earthquake, and a second palace was built on top of the ruins. Today's visible remains combined features from both phases. The central courtyard is the heart of the complex, measuring roughly 50 x 20 m. This large open space served as a gathering area for ceremonies, processions, and communal events. The courtyard connects directly to major wings of the palace, including storage areas, workshops, administrative rooms, and living spaces. Excavations uncovered evidence of ritual installations, including altars and stone basins, suggesting that the palace played a major ceremonial role in Minoan society. To the west of the courtyard lies the West Court, a large paved area bordered by long steps. These steps may have served as viewing platforms during public ceremonies. The court also contains stone-lined pits and channels that may have had ritual functions. The arrangement reflects the Minoan emphasis on open-air gatherings and processional movement. Architecture at Phaistos shows an intentional connection between indoor and outdoor spaces, blending administrative, residential, and ceremonial activities into a unified environment. One of the palace's most impressive features is the Grand Staircase, a monumental structure with broad steps leading to upper terraces. The staircase demonstrates refined architectural planning and provides access to important rooms. Its scale indicates that the palace was not only a political and economic center, but also a place of social display. The Minoans emphasized aesthetic design, and the staircase reflects their mastery of space, symmetry, and stone construction. The palace's storage areas reveal economic organization. Long magazines, narrow rooms with thick walls once housed path, large storage jars used for grain, oil, wine, and other goods. The size and number of these rooms show that Phaistos served as a regional distribution center. Goods from surrounding farms were collected, processed, and redistributed by palace administrators. Seals and ceilings found in these areas show a well-developed system of record-keeping. Clay ceilings stamped with personal or official symbols were used to secure storerooms and shipments. Living quarters and administrative spaces occupy the northern and eastern wings. These areas include small rooms with benches, raised platforms, and storage niches. Some rooms contain plastered floors and wall remains that suggest decorative frescoes once adorned the palace. At Phaistos, as in other Minoan palaces, the combination of utility and artistic expression reflects a society that valued comfort, beauty, and ritual symbolism. The Phaistos disc remains the site's most famous find. Discovered in 1908 in a small underground room, the disc is made of fired clay and measures about 15 cm in diameter. Both sides contain spiraling lines of stamped symbols: humans, animals, tools, plants, and abstract shapes. No other object with the same script has ever been found, making the disc unique. It remains undeciphered, and scholars debate whether it represents writing, a ritual hymn, a record, or even a game piece. Regardless of its purpose, the disc highlights the creativity and individuality of Minoan culture. Other artifacts from Phaistos include pottery with intricate designs, seal stones carved with animals and mythological scenes, and tools made from bronze and stone. These objects show that the palace was a center of craftsmanship. Workshops within the complex produce textiles, ceramics, and metal goods. The variety of tools found suggests specialized labor, with artisans working in organized spaces under palace supervision. Environmental studies show that the region surrounding Phaistos was fertile and well-suited for agriculture. The Minoans grew grains, olives, and grapes, supporting large populations. They also engaged in trade across the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean. Goods such as pottery, metalwork, and textiles from Crete have been found in sites across Greece, Cyprus, and the Levant. The location of Phaistos allowed it to control land-based trade across southern Crete, complementing the maritime activities of nearby ports. Religious life at Phaistos is revealed through small shrines, ritual vessels, and symbolic motifs. Minoan religion emphasized natural forces, goddesses, and sacred animals. Scenes of worship appear in seals and pottery. Excavations also uncovered evidence that special rooms were used for ceremonial dining or libation rituals. The palace's design with open courtyards and elevated platforms reflects a culture in which ritual activities were integrated into daily life rather than confined to separate temples. The palace experienced several phases of destruction, likely caused by earthquakes. The region is seismically active, and geological studies show repeated building collapses over centuries. After one of these events around 1450 BCE, the palace was abandoned or greatly reduced in function. This period corresponds to broader disruptions across the city that affected Minoan society. Mycenaean influence from mainland Greece increased soon after, and many Minoan sites show cultural shifts at Phaistos. The final occupation layers include pottery styles associated with the Mycenaean period. Despite its decline, the ruins remained visible throughout antiquity. Later settlements existed nearby, but the palace itself was not rebuilt. Its walls, staircases, and courtyards endured beneath layers of soil and vegetation until modern excavations in the early 20th century uncovered them. Archaeologists carefully documented each section, revealing the complexity of the structure and its significance in Minoan culture. Today, the Palace of Phaistos offers a detailed picture of life in Bronze Age Crete. Walking through the ruins, visitors can follow pathways from storerooms to ceremonial courts, climb the broad staircases, and stand in the central courtyard where Minoans once gathered. The openness of the site allows the surrounding landscape to merge with the archaeology, emphasizing the connection between the palace and the natural world. The palace remains an important source for understanding Minoan architecture, administration, and ritual life. Its design reflects a society that balanced practicality with artistic expression. The storerooms show economic sophistication. The courtyards reveal ceremonial traditions, and the small rooms and workshops indicate specialized crafts. The Phaistos disc adds an element of mystery, reminding researchers that much about Minoan writing and communication remains unknown. The Minoan Palace of Phaistos stands as a testament to the creativity of Bronze Age Crete. Its terraces, storerooms, stairways, and central courtyard reveal a vibrant society with complex traditions and advanced engineering. Through continued study, Phaistos continues to illuminate the cultural world that produced one of the Mediterranean's earliest and most remarkable civilizations.